Maybe I wasn't such a bad teacher after all.
If you go through with this, Clyde, it's a decision you'll have to live with for the rest of your life.
Welcome to Watch Mojo. And today we're counting down our picks for the most disappointing and anticlimactic film conclusions. Spoilers ahead.
Please make me a real boy.
Number 30, Source Code. Source Code is about an Army pilot, Stevens, who is repeatedly sent to inhabit the body of a teacher in order to prevent a deadly train attack. Stevens' real body is on life support and he wants to be allowed to pass on. But to do that, he has to succeed in his mission to stop the train tragedy.
Wait, no,
On his final attempt, he defuses the bomb, stops the villain, and even makes up with his father. Leaving it there would have been perfect.
I'd kiss you again.
Again?
However, after his old existence had ended, he still lived on in the teacher's body. It's supposed to be a happy resolution, but him completely taking over another man's life is anything but.
So what do you want to do today?
I think we should stay here for a while.
Number 29, Savages. Fake-out endings are always going to feel a little cheap, especially when the imagined conclusion is better than the actual one. This was the case with Savages, a gritty film about weed-growing friends going up against the cartel. It was exciting and didn't pull any punches when it came to portraying the darker side of the drug trade. It culminated in a violent shootout, where everyone involved met a tragic end. This was dark, but made sense given the events that had preceded it. You'd think that's where the credits would come in. Instead, it was revealed that what we had just seen hadn't really happened at all.
What really happened was more of a f*** up than a shootout.
The real finale was much more anticlimactic, with the heroes getting away scot-free.
For now, we live like savages.
Number 28, The Midnight Sky. Plot twists aren't a new concept. When done correctly, they can be an excellent way of subverting the audience's expectations and making them rethink everything they just watched. A poorly executed one, however, can sour the rest of the story.
I wish you'd tell me something about your life, Iris.
Such was the case with The Midnight Sky. Two characters, a reclusive scientist and a young girl, form a strong emotional bond as they undergo their journey together. Any hopes of the two surviving to the end and continuing their paternal relationship were dashed when it was shown she'd been a figment of his imagination. It was a bleak moment that was made worse with the final blow, that the crew he'd been trying to help had been left with an uncertain fate.
Just us?
Number 27, Wonder Woman. One common trope found in the superhero genre is an extensive battle at the end, consisting mostly of CGI and low stakes. Wonder Woman seemed like it was going to break that mold.
Oh, my dear, you have so much to learn.
It had focused on the more human elements of war, with the heroine realizing that subduing her enemies wouldn't be enough to stop it. The director, Patty Jenkins, even intended for the antagonist to be a human, and not a god as previously assumed. It would have been a refreshing take, even if it wasn't as showy. However, the studio preferred a classic VFX-laden fight, which is what we got instead. It traded a poignant impact for flashy visuals, which caused the otherwise stellar origin to end on a shaky note. Number 26, X-Men: The Last Stand. Making extreme narrative decisions is risky enough, especially in an established franchise.
We work as a team.
Best defense is a good offense.
However, it's another thing entirely to immediately walk those back before the credits have even finished rolling. X-Men: The Last Stand was one of the most tragic in the original trilogy. Several beloved mutants, including Dr. Xavier, had died. Others, like Magneto, had lost their powers. either voluntarily or by force. Normally, choices like this would have lasting repercussions that would have a ripple effect across the following films. Instead, they were reversed almost immediately, with Magneto indicating he still had telekinesis and Xavier surviving. It was an immediate backpedal of the consequences they had just established, and it made the emotions they caused feel unearned.
Hello, Moira.
Number 25. Safe Haven. A character suddenly being exposed as having been a ghost isn't a new plot device, but when it works, it can be a genuine gut punch that can completely recontextualize a story.
Thank you for being such a good friend.
If that doesn't hit the mark, it instead comes across like a gratuitous way of forcing a shocking twist. Up until its ghostly reveal, Safe Haven had been a perfectly fine romantic drama. There were plenty of dramatic turns that kept it exciting, and so the additional development of Joe being dead the entire time was unneeded.
Because I'm gone, and they're yours now.
Having Alex find the letters she'd left behind would have gotten the point across just as well, without retconning one of the principal roles.
I hope that one day my family is whole again.
Number 24. Forces of Nature. The best romantic comedies usually have one thing in common: the two leads riding off into the sunset to live happily ever after. When one deviates from that, it can dampen the mood. Forces of Nature seemed like it was going to end with Ben leaving his current relationship to pursue one with Sarah instead. The chemistry between the two was undeniable, and the lead up to their first kiss felt natural. This was shattered when she reminded him that they'd only known each other for a few days. Their short-lived relationship quickly petered out, and he carried on with his wedding.
Farewell, Ben.
Considering everything they'd been through together up until that point, them not getting together made the story feel pointless and unsatisfying.
Wherever she is, I really hope she's happy.
Number 23. AI, Artificial Intelligence. It's a shame when a movie sets up a heart-wrenching finale only to shift to something more wholesome at the last second. AI, Artificial Intelligence, is centered around a robot child experiencing a severe existential crisis.
My brain is falling out.
The climax of the film was intense and even showed the robot attempting to take his own life. For a moment, it seemed like it would end with him begging to become real as he faded away.
Please, please make me into a real live boy.
However, the creators decided to abandon that. Instead, it's revealed that he'd survived and would be given one last day with a copy of his mother. While it was more hopeful, it wasn't as emotionally satisfying as a more somber closing would have been.
So David went to sleep too.
Number 22. Seed of Chucky. Considering how over the top the rest of the Chucky series is, a film about villainous dolls raising a child hardly even raised eyebrows.
Konnichiwa, Oka-san, Oto-san.
For the most part, it was a standard Child's Play picture, blending the classic brutal kills with moments of pure existentialism. It seemed like it was going to end on a dramatic note, with Chucky taking Tiffany's life and then being killed by his own son, a thematically interesting conclusion to bring the whole tale full circle. However, that was ripped away when it suddenly cut to 5 years afterwards, showing that their deaths had not been final. It cheapened the previous scene and made it seem more melodramatic than it needed to be. Number 21. Grease. Grease had its silly moments, but even a whimsical number like Beauty School Dropout was clearly a dream sequence, which helped the film feel more grounded in reality.
Beauty school dropout. Go back to high school.
This balance was maintained up until the very end, when Danny and Sandy rode off into the sky. Others even waved to them as they flew away, indicating that the bizarre moment actually occurred rather than being someone's daydream. Had there been more moments of pure fantasy throughout, then this bizarre and unsatisfying ending could have gone unnoticed. With it being left as it was, it only served to end the musical on an unnecessarily confusing note.
Number 20, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Next on our list is the Indiana Jones film that went away from the spiritual and straight into sci-fi.
How do we open it?
While we could stomach a lot, this film nuked the fridge big time when the Crystal Skull awakened a generic alien who proceeded to melt Cate Blanchett's brain. Even worse is the image of Indy witnessing a spaceship flying off into another dimension. The ending of The Last Crusade and originally the series was perfect. Why'd they have to go mess with it? Number 19, Superman. Don't get us wrong. There's still something magical about 1978's Superman, but that doesn't mean the ending makes any sense. When Superman fails to save Lois Lane, he decides to just throw out the laws of physics. This involves Superman nonsensically using his super speed to reverse the rotation of the planet and turn back time, because that's how it works. Now, we're not scientists, but we're pretty sure that would just kill everything, rather than save anyone's life. This ending is more likely to leave viewers puzzled than impressed. Number 18, The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2. There are many who'd argue that the beginning and the middle of the Twilight Saga were pretty bad too, but even die-hard fans had difficulty standing up for its ending. The final battle scene has some moments, but the conclusion is simply a con, revealing that the whole battle was just a vision.
The Varturi might be gone, but they will never forgive what happened here.
It's to be expected that a book-to-film adaptation should employ creative license, but at least make it worth their while.
Where did you do that?
Been practicing.
In the end, the epic something was an epic nothing, and an epic waste of time.
Forever.
Number 17, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen.
The Transformers, they've been here a long, long time.
While some films on this list were perhaps a little too hasty to kill people off, the Transformers team flirted with the idea of KOing a main character, but couldn't quite follow through, much to our frustration. First, Sam dies and is then revived, and then the unthinkable happens as Optimus Prime looks to be on his way out. But it's okay, because she's a robot, and robots can get spare parts.
Could that energy somehow be used to reactivate Optimus and bring him back to life?
All that was ever needed was a service and an upgrade, and then hey presto, day is saved.
A living prime. I don't believe it.
Number 16, The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I love you.
Everyone loves an emotional ending, but The Amazing Spider-Man 2's attempt was just cringy.
Tell you what it says I love you. Because I love you.
Sure, it's kind of cute when the kid stands in the way of the Rhino, even if it's sort of confusing as to exactly why Rhino's there, but when the real web-slinger arrives back into shot, we just can't suspend our disbelief any further.
Hey, Spider-Man.
I knew you'd come back.
The heart-to-heart, the fist bump, the megaphone, and the manhole cover. It all reeks of cheese. This ending was meant to keep us guessing, but it only had us cursing. Number 15, The Forgotten. When in doubt, blame aliens. That's apparently what the filmmakers behind The Forgotten decided when they came up with this ending.
Sam, he grew up. He was 9. 9. I had 9 years of memories.
The film follows Julianne Moore's character Telly, who believes she had a son, but no one else in her life remembers him.
He always wore that hat.
Telly, please just scaring me. Tell me what's wrong.
It's an intriguing premise, which seems set to raise questions about Telly's sanity and takes us for a ride into government conspiracy territory. That is, until the reveal that it was all aliens.
There are worse things than forgetting.
No, there aren't.
You need to.
Yep, turns out the government is working with extraterrestrials to conduct a completely nonsensical experiment about maternal instincts. E.T., go home.
I need more time.
Number 14, Saw 3D. The original Saw's twist ending shocked us, but man did this series jump the shark.
Something like that doesn't get you to change your perspective on life. I don't know what will.
Remember Dr. Lawrence Gordon, the guy who cut off his foot in the first movie? Well, get this. He managed to survive, and in the final act of Saw 3D, it's revealed that he's been Jigsaw's partner in crime ever since.
Without you, my work over the last few years would not have been possible.
In retaliation for killing Jill, Gordon kidnaps Detective Hoffman, takes him to a familiar room, and declares the game officially over. It's totally ludicrous, but at least the franchise got marginally better with 2017's Jigsaw.
Game over.
Number 13, The Number 23. In this psychological thriller from Joel Schumacher, Jim Carrey's character Walter finds a book titled The Number 23. It tells the story of a detective who murdered his own girlfriend. With an increasing amount of things in common with the character and the eponymous number seemingly popping up everywhere in his life, his own sanity begins to unravel as he pulls at each thread of the mystery. What mysterious forces could be at work?
Someday I'm going to write a book, and I'll do it to somebody else.
Walter.
Oh, God. Whoever wrote it knows you very well, and only they can give you your answers.
Well, as it turns out, it was actually Walter who wrote the book himself, before giving himself amnesia. Of course.
Mom, who wrote the book? Do you
Tell him
know?
who wrote it.
You wrote the book, Walter.
Number 12, Lucy. It's hard to say whether Lucy is a smart story stuck in a dumb movie or a dumb story stuck in a smart movie. One thing's for certain, though. Its ending is 100% idiotic. As her brain reaches maximum capacity, Lucy transcends all humankind, becomes one with the space-time continuum, and leaves behind a flash drive for Dr. Morgan Freeman. It almost feels like director Luc Besson is trying to channel 2001. But instead of going out on a profound note, Lucy leaves the audience slapping their foreheads in frustration. Number 11, Serenity. Matthew McConaughey has starred in some incredible films, and Serenity is not one of them.
Sir, we paid you $700 for this.
What starts off as a mystery thriller with an impressive cast soon becomes, well, a computer game. Yeah, they're all in a computer game, except for Matthew McConaughey's son Patrick, who's real and created the game.
It's got this whole world. There's this guy on a boat, and he's catching fish.
It turns out the scenes that seem like flashbacks of Patrick are actually in the here and now.
If I didn't catch fish all day,
I didn't catch fish all day, I'd find a way to kill you.
This last fact is revealed at the end when Patrick kills his abusive stepdad. Sadly, by this point, the audience's suspension of disbelief is already dead.
Patrick!
Number 10, Now You See Me.
Oh yes, that would be, what do the kids call it these days? Oh yes, that's right, magic.
A good magic trick builds anticipation that leads towards some sort of big reveal. And understandably, audiences were expecting the same from the ending of Now You See Me. The vast majority of the film is seriously slick, the magic is impressive, and left us all waiting on the edge of our seats for the conclusion. But when that presented itself as one double agent cop and a series of plot holes big enough to personally fall into, viewers were sighing rather than smiling.
Dylan? Wait a minute.
Dylan, how did this happen? Dylan!
Number 9. Star Trek Into Darkness. Into Darkness was such an awesome follow-up to J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboot that it's easy to forgive the film's absurd ending.
My name is Khan.
With that said, it was a pretty absurd ending. Rather than paying homage to Wrath of Khan, Into Darkness literally recreates its spiritual successor's iconic climax. The only difference is that Kirk and Spock reverse roles, leading to Kirk's demise and Spock making William Shatner's infamously silly cursing sound even sillier. Don't worry though, because Bones basically cures death and brings Kirk back to life. Well, that's convenient.
Oh, don't be so melodramatic. You were barely dead.
Number 8. Cats. The ending, you say? How about the whole movie? That's a good point, but the ending is particularly bonkers.
Get out!
Admittedly, director Tom Hooper had his work cut out for him when he decided to adapt Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical, which doesn't really make sense either. But you can get away with levels of absurdity on stage that don't necessarily translate to film. The ending of Cats sees outcast Grisabella singing a song at the Jellicle Ball that wins her a ride on a chandelier to the Heaviside Lair, a metaphor for rebirth that's also a literal place of some sort. This is despite the efforts of the evil McCavity, who for some reason has magic powers. Yeah, makes sense of that.
Heaviside Lair, here I come!
Number 7. The Matrix Revolutions.
By the end of the third film in this franchise, the storyline had become so convoluted that it needed something extra special to hold it all together.
The program Smith has grown beyond your control. Soon he will spread through the city as he spread through the Matrix.
Unfortunately, the film dodged that idea entirely. Sure, Neo's sacrifice is heroic and Smith's demise is a good thing, but what about everybody else plugged into the Matrix?
He ended the war. The machines are gone. The war is over, sir. The war is over.
Has the whole thing just been explained away by a brief encounter on a park bench? A pretty sunrise is nice, but it doesn't answer any questions.
Everything's okay now.
How long will there be peace? Will the ones who want out actually be freed? And what does the Oracle mean that we'll see Neo again?
Will we ever see him again?
I suspect so. Someday.
Number 6. War of the Worlds. Arguably, Steven Spielberg was fated to disappoint from the start by choosing to remain loyal to War of the Worlds source material. This means that the aliens are defeated by germs. Did these intergalactic travelers learn nothing from the extraterrestrials who were defeated by water in Signs? Do your research, aliens! Still, the movie looks set to challenge us with an ambiguous and powerful ending since Rey's son Robbie presumably died after stupidly running into battle. But guess what? He's alive, without a scratch on him. And the narration wraps up everything in a nice, tidy bow.
They were undone, destroyed, after all of man's weapons and devices had failed, by the tiniest creatures that God in his wisdom put upon this earth.
Number 5. The Happening.
Why is this happening? I don't know for sure, Josh.
Frankly, when it comes to bad endings, M. Night Shyamalan's movies left us spoiled for choice. Signs, The Village, Lady in the Water.
There were children in that room. Elliot, please tell us what to do. I need a second, okay? Why can't anybody give me a goddamn second?
Audiences still fondly remember the twist ending in his breakout film The Sixth Sense, but man, have there been a lot of disappointments since. Ultimately, though, we had to go with The Happening.
Plants and trees just can't pick up and move when they feel threatened like other species. They have only one option: to rapidly evolve their chemistry.
Sure, there's a well-meaning environmental message in there, but you're saying that the mysterious mass self-inflicted deaths in the northeastern United States were set in motion by trees?
Global warming. Temperature goes up a fraction of a degree, makes them disoriented. Maybe.
And trees are now about to cause global catastrophe. We sat through this entire film for that?
To be perfectly honest, This was an act of nature, and we'll never fully understand it.
Number 4, Planet of the Apes. Messing with the classic film's iconic twist ending. That's just bananas.
You maniacs! You blew it up!
In the famous 1968 film, Charlton Heston's George Taylor realizes that the Planet of the Apes is really Earth. He's traveled to the far future. For his 2001 reboot, Tim Burton decided to add a different twist, but one that has more shock value than logic. The hero returns home to discover that apes have taken over, shown by a dramatically reworked Abe Lincoln Memorial. This is actually closer to the source material, but in the novel, centuries have passed, allowing time for apes to become the dominant species. In the movie, there's no explanation whatsoever. And even if this did make sense, it would still pale in comparison to the original.
Number 3, Law-Abiding Citizen. Normally, viewers are rooting for the villain to lose. However, there are plenty of exceptions to this rule, with Clyde from Law-Abiding Citizen being one of the most notable. After witnessing the horrific fates of his family and subsequently being failed by the justice system, seeing him take down those at fault felt justified.
I'm sorry, Nick.
Him successfully carrying out his final act of revenge would have been the perfect way to cap the thriller. Instead, they opted for a typical Hollywood finale where the hero outsmarted him at the last second.
It's a decision you have to live with for the rest of your life. Which I figure by now is about 25 more seconds.
It derailed the story and gave the protagonist what many felt was an undeserved win. Clyde coming out on top would have been the perfect cathartic ending, rather than the typical one we got instead.
Number 2, I Am Legend. Richard Matheson's novel I Am Legend is a classic that inspired the movies The Last Man on Earth and The Omega Man.
We may have something here.
What made it so memorable was its ending, when vampire hunter Robert Neville realizes that for vampires, he is the terrifying monster preying on the innocent. The Will Smith vehicle, I Am Legend, seemed to be going in the same direction, until sending Smith out with a bang and his friends on to live happily ever after.
Dr. Robert Neville dedicated his life to the discovery of a cure and the restoration of humanity.
It's a conclusion that completely undermines the source material in favor of pure cliché. Although an alternate ending was released on DVD, this movie's awful ending has become legendary.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, The Devil Inside. Was this a prank or what?
We need to get under control.
Taking our top spot is this found footage horror flick centered on demonic possession.
She's waking up. We haven't got much time, Michael. We haven't got much time.
In the finale, priest Ben Rawlings realizes that Isabella isn't quite herself. Deciding that the hospital can't help her, he sets his hopes on an exorcism instead. A scuffle in the car leads to the driver getting possessed, and they veer into oncoming traffic.
Michael!
Then everyone's rolling around in the car, and it's horrible, and bam! Movie's over. And you're left with a website link? Wow, we hope you didn't pay to see this in theaters.
Which movie do you think is the most disappointing? Let us know in the comments below.
We've been up here for 4 days. Why did you drive the car into the air if you didn't know how to get it back down?
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.